Fantastic. So welcome again, everyone, to Conversations Beyond the Comfort Zone. That is our deep dive topic today in the quickest 1 hour of my week. I'm going to share a very exciting new tool with you. It's new-ish. I've been working on it for a while, and it all kind of came into fruition over these last couple of months. I have tested it a couple of times. I have got feedback on it a few times. And so I thought, why not share it with our broader community here via our beautiful little Coachology webinar? And so you're welcome to take screenshots as we go. I do invite you to drop comments, ask questions. I'm going to ask you some questions, so drop those into the chat box as well. And if you do need to leave early, fear not. This session will be uploaded to our YouTube channel a little bit later tonight. So feel free to share that with your colleagues as well. And subscribe to our YouTube channel so then you can have full open access to 400 videos that have been uploaded over the years. At least 100 or 200 of those are webinars like this. So without further ado, I'm going to hit the share button. We're going to come back over here. There we go. And all right, that's enough. Yeah, look, there you guys are. ACI over here to all my friends in Bangladesh. Yeah, I was over there about 8 years ago. 2026 is a good year for me to come back to Bangladesh. So speak to someone who has the power and invite me back for some more leadership action in Bangladesh, in Dhaka. That would be fun and amazing. So as many of you know, here at Coachology, we are experts in leadership coaching and neuro-linguistic programming. These are just some of the organizations that I've worked with all around the world. And, you know, having worked with literally hundreds of companies and thousands of leaders over the years, having these conversations outside of the comfort zone is one of the more challenging aspects of leadership. As I'm sure most of you experienced at some point or another, having those conversations can be awkward, it can be emotional, and a lot of it though really exists up here, right? We have a lot of fear around delivering feedback or asking for what we want or setting boundaries and all these kinds of examples of conversations that might be outside of our comfort zone. So let's start with the basics. Let's get clear, like what are some examples of conversations beyond the comfort zone? So you can start to tell me in the chat box now, what kind of conversation is happening beyond the comfort zone? I'll get the ball rolling. The most obvious one is when it's time to deliver feedback. Yep, that can be outside of the comfort zone. We might be uncomfortable with it. We are fearful or concerned about how the other person might react to the feedback. So that's definitely one outside the comfort zone. You might need to give an official warning. Right? So if you have given feedback to someone in the past and they continue with that unacceptable behavior, then depending on, you know, labor laws in your country, you may need to give an official warning. Uncomfortable, a little bit outside the comfort zone. It gets worse than that. You might need to terminate an employee. That's probably one of the most uncomfortable conversations you need to have. You might want to ask for a raise. Boss, I'm such a great worker. I'm working so hard. Can I have some more money, please? Well, guess what? That can be really, really difficult for some people to ask for a raise. Right? Tell me in the chat box, what are some other examples, please, of uncomfortable conversations or conversations beyond the comfort zone, please? Tell me in the chat box, what are some other examples? I'm just... okay. Yep. Tell me in the chat box, what are some other examples of conversations beyond the comfort zone? You know, even just some coaching conversations where you're wanting to coach either, you know, a real coaching client or a colleague or your subordinate, underperformance. Yep. Asking for a favor. Yep. correcting members' unwanted behavior. Yep. Managing the conflicts. Absolutely. Yep. So some good examples there. Thank you for sharing, everyone. Keep dropping them in there if you like. Setting boundaries, right? So, we need the ability to set clear boundaries. And it can be one of the more uncomfortable, fearful, emotional conversations that you need to have, right? To say that, no, this is my boundary. I do not want you coming across my boundary. That behavior, that manipulation, whatever it is unacceptable, which is really another way of saying you're setting boundaries is you're willing to stand up for yourself. You're willing to say no, right? And that can be really difficult for someone who's been saying yes, yes, yes all of their life. Those people, those of us who are people pleasers, saying no can be way outside of the comfort zone. Now, the good news is Coach Christy, my partner, she's running a webinar next week. I think it might be Wednesday. On how to set clear boundaries. So if you want to learn more about that, pay attention. I think tomorrow there'll be an invitation coming to your inbox about that webinar. So feel free to register for that one as well. What else have we got here? Addressing dishonesty. So if someone is lying to you, someone is not truthful to you, and you need to address it, and this can be an employee or it could be a family member, whoever it is. And then finally, asking to recognize contributions, accountability, giving time frame towards the goal, meeting deadlines, when you're scared to bring up things to upper stakeholders. Excellent, everyone. So thanks very much for sharing what a conversation beyond the comfort zone looks like to you. Now, here's a bit of an overview of why most difficult conversations fail and an overview on how to begin to turn them around. So here are the common reasons why these conversations could go wrong. And this is probably the first one here is probably the biggest one. So a conversation beyond the comfort zone, oftentimes there's some kind of emotional trigger, meaning the emotion can be in you that like you are fearful, that you are scared of the reaction of the other person. You're worried that the other person might be emotionally triggered and you're worried about some kind of massive conflict. And so what happens is when we respond emotionally, then the conversation is normally lose-lose, right? Meaning that no one really wins. And so, and especially around normal feedback. Yeah. So when we're giving feedback in the organization, this is what normally happens. There's some kind of event or behavior, right? We should give feedback and we don't. Then some time goes past, a similar event happens. We should give the feedback and we don't, right? We come up with these excuses. Oh, I'm too busy. Oh, it's only a small thing. Oh, it's okay. The rest of their performance is okay. But in those instances when we don't give the feedback, inside of us, the frustration and the anger builds up because we should give feedback and then we don't. Frustration up. We should give feedback and we don't. Frustration up. So it keeps building up little by little by little until then one day, here's that similar behavior again in that same person. And because of so much built up frustration and anger, boom, we lash out and we say to that person, right, you get into my office now. Now, because we've started that conversation with that emotional charge, the other person has no choice except to defend themselves, right? And in their defenses, they will shut down, right? It's not going to be an open two-way conversation. They'll be very defensive. Sometimes the best form of defense is attack. So they will start to attack. They'll start to finger point. They'll start to blame. And then the conversation is a train wreck. So that's one of the main reasons. Number two, If you know that you need to have a sensitive conversation, something outside of your comfort zone, then you want to do your best to prepare. So, lack of preparation, right? Jumping straight into that conversation, not being clear on the goals, not having like a plan B or a plan C if it goes this way and that way. And because you're not prepared, then chances are the other person will lead the conversation where they want it to go, not where you want it to go. So, yeah, we need to make sure that we prepare. When we are emotional, it becomes much easier to blame people or judge people. And so the reason why these conversations go wrong is it moves more towards criticism and we're doing our own little finger pointing instead of observation based on fact. Miscommunication. So again, and a lot of this is rooted in these emotional charges. So when the emotions come up, our intelligence, what does it do? Go up or down? That's right. Our intelligence goes down. So when that frustration, anger, or whatever else goes up, our intelligence goes down. So we're using vague language. We're not specific. We haven't prepared, so we don't have examples of that behavior or that impact from that thing that they did or did not do. And we're making assumptions. We're mind reading about why the person is doing what they're doing. So all of that creates massive miscommunication. And then again, now the emotions are going up even more. Poor timing, right? So sometimes these conversations go wrong because we're addressing sensitive topics in the heat of the moment, right there, when it might be better, right, to actually choose a better time to have that conversation. Right now, I am a firm believer though in these sensitive conversations. Sooner is always better than later. And so we do fall into the trap, oh, I'll do it later. Oh, I'll do it later. But then again, something happens and then your emotion is building up and you say to yourself, oh, I'm just going to do it now. That's more of a reaction and you just want to get all of those emotions out of your system. Well, it's probably not going to be a very productive meeting. And very importantly, why these conversations go wrong is there's no framework. So again, I'm still really shocked, having been in the coaching and training space now for 12 years, working with thousands of leaders all around the world. I would say 80% of leaders do not follow a proven structured framework when, especially when delivering feedback and or having these sensitive types of conversations that are outside of the comfort zone. And so what do? They're just replicating all of the bad ways that they've learned along their way of delivering feedback, right? Because they're probably just replicating or doing whatever their boss did with them, which were probably different from company to company over the course of the career. So rarely, they've never really learned a structured process. So they have these bad habits of having these difficult conversations. Now, simply to turn it around, this is where we're going to start. Step number one is you need to have your emotional intelligence in place, right? And of course, that's an ongoing journey. There are thousands of different tools on how you can increase your emotional intelligence. One of the best, by the way, is neuro-linguistic programming. More on that later. There are tons of tools within NLP to help us manage our emotions. So when you are having these conversations beyond the comfort zone, you must find a way to remain calm. And you need to do it in a safe space. By safe space, I mean no people around, right? If you're going to give some kind of feedback or these conversations out of the comfort zone, no one wants an audience, right? So very simply, a safe space is somewhere where other people cannot see or hear what's going on, right? And then the second point is to follow a proven framework. So as I mentioned, the way I've been delivering feedback for over the years has been very effective, and I've been able to put it in this very simple framework that you guys can follow. So let's take a look. I'll just quickly check my chats here. What are you guys telling me? Yeah, emotional hijack. Yeah, when you're having these sensitive conversations or conversations out of the comfort zone or feedback, sometimes the person receiving the feedback, they will deliberately overdo their emotions, right, to try to hijack the conversation. And just know that that is a strategy that some people use. It's not really cool, right? It's something that children would do, I want a lolly. So unfortunately, though, some adults still use that. The best way to remain calm is to not take things personally. Oh, my man, you are talking my language, right? That is the best way to remain calm, is to not take things perfectly. Can you see the next slide that I'm about to share you? Huh, interesting. Very good. So thanks again for those comments in the chat box. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, listen up. I'm going to ask you this question, and I want you to honestly answer into the chat box here now. And if you do it quickly, then everyone else's scores will come up and no one will know what your score is. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at receiving feedback? 1 means you like these guys. La, 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 la. 10 means you eat feedback for breakfast. Now, I know it depends who's giving you the feedback and a few other variables as well. Just on average, and be honest, this is for just your own self-assessment. How good are you receiving feedback? Whoa, thank you guys. We've got lots of 7s, 8s, some 9s, 10 if constructive. Yep, okay, excellent. Thank you for sharing. Good. So here's the thing. If you want to be good, especially at delivering feedback, there is no way on earth that you can be good at delivering feedback if firstly you cannot receive it yourself. Think about it. If you're like these guys in the picture here, la 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 la, and your boss is trying to give you feedback and you're oh, hot potato, you're blaming someone else, you're pointing fingers, it's not true, then the the very next day you need to give feedback to your own subordinate. It's not congruent, it's not authentic, and your subordinates, they know that you can't receive feedback, and then here you are trying to give them feedback. It won't land. They won't believe you. They'll think that you have some ulterior motive because you're not good at receiving feedback. So if you want to get good with these conversations beyond the comfort zone, whatever it is, I invite you to explore how to receive feedback with the 4D framework. Let us take a look. So the first D is data, or data, however you like to say it. So what I want you to think is, okay, here comes some feedback. It doesn't matter who it's from, wherever the feedback is coming from. The first step is to simply recognize that it is data and information, right? It's just data and information. It may or may not be true at this point. And so as you just treat it as data and information, well, that's the very, very first step, which then links very closely to the second D, which is someone mentioned in the chat. Don't take it personally. Now, I know that might sound a bit contradictory. If you're receiving feedback, then, well, it's about me. But here's the thing. If the other person giving you the feedback, if they are the one that's getting angry, if they're the one that's getting frustrated, if they're the one that's finger pointing and blaming, it says more about their lack of emotional intelligence than anything about you. Even if you did something wrong, their overreaction and their emotional outburst, that is not yours to own. It's just not, right? It says more that they are lacking in their own emotional intelligence. So step number 1, data and information, which you do not take personally. Now, the toughest step here is the third D, which is dare to seek the truth. What do I mean by that? I would like to dare you to think differently, and I want you to honestly ask yourself, is this feedback true for me? Is this feedback true for me? Now, here's the thing. The feedback that you receive, it could be something that you did not know about your behavior, right? So in other words, it could be feedback that is from your blind spot, something that you don't know. So that's why it can be a little bit shocking sometimes. The other reason is sometimes the person delivering the feedback, because of their tonality or because of their emotional outburst, we automatically block it because we're in survival mode. Now, again, once that meeting has finished, once that things have cooled down, once you have this information and data, now you can dare to get out of your own habitual program and thought patterns. You can ask yourself, is this true for me? And it might take a little while, right? Sometimes you'll get it in the meeting. You'll say, yep, all right, boss. Okay, yep, I own it. Thank you. Or it might take a couple of hours, right? You might be like, you leave the meeting and then you're having your lunch and you start to think, damn it. Yep. Okay. I think the boss is right. All right. Okay. Yep. All right. Yep. That is true for me. But it might even take a day. It might take a couple of days, and you might need to check in with some other colleagues. Oh, hey, Bill, the boss mentioned this thing to me the other day about my behavior. Is that something that you have observed in me? And Bill goes, yeah, kinda. A good friend will tell you the truth. And so it could take a couple of days. Now, here's something interesting. In data that I'm totally making up, I would say that about 80% of the feedback that you receive is true for you. 20% of the feedback that you true. Now, remember, this is data that I'm simply making up. This is my best guess through my own life's experiences. 80% is true. 20% is not true. Now, what do? If the feedback is not true for you, what do you do? Tell me in the chat box. You've got two options as far as I can see. There might be more. If you receive the feedback, you've carefully assessed it, you've looked differently, maybe you checked with a colleague and it's not true for you, what are your two options? As I check to the chat box. Yes, thank you, Pierre. You can park it and you can ignore it, right? Like, think about it. If you meet some random stranger and they say some blah, blah, blah to you that's not true, most of the time you just go, who are you? It's like water off a duck's back. You don't give it your time or attention because it's definitely not true for you. So you just let it go, right? And that's a very freeing way to deal with feedback that is not true for you. It's all, thanks, Alvin. It's always important to confront the brutal facts of reality to fully address any situation. Otherwise, any response will just be a band-aid, if at all. Exactly. You could agree to disagree. You could ask for some kind of proof with data or evidence. Recheck the data source, let it flow, and let your work speak for you. I like that one. Thank you. Ask for second opinions. If one person says I'm a horse, I ignore. If two people tell me that I'm a horse, I consider the possibility. If three people says I'm a horse, I buy a saddle. Yes, Pierre, I love it. I love it. I love it. Very good. Now, okay, here's the thing. Option number one, as many people have said, you let it go. Now, if the feedback you are receiving is in some way going to affect either your reputation in the organization or it's going to affect your chances of promotion, then you do have the opportunity to push back. You can give feedback to the person giving you the feedback. right? So you might need to stand up for yourself. You might need to define your own boundaries, which again, Coach Christie is going to talk more about that next week. But that's sometimes you might have to push back and say, listen, boss, I appreciate your perspective and I would like to share my perspective on how that is incorrect. Yeah. Now, the feedback model that I'm about to share with you, you can use it with your boss. Now, obviously, there might be some risk involved. I don't know who your boss is. I don't know their motives for giving you the feedback. I know in some organization there are political games afoot and a play. I can't comment to that game. It's just a game that I don't like or don't play. So let's keep going though with the 4D framework. The final D is decide, right? So if you've taken that information as data, you did not take it personally, right? You've dared to seek the truth and you say, okay, yep, that's true for me. Now you need to decide, right? What are you going to do about it? Decide what actions that you will take to transform yourself and then take those actions, right? Just decide what you're going to do and then do that thing because ultimately it's going to help you improve. Is that a good thing? Of course it is. It's good for your personal, it's good for your professional, it's good for your promotion chances. So again, wherever you are on your scale of 1 to 10 of receiving feedback, whether you're a 5, a 6, a 7, or an 8, just keep working on getting yourself up to an 8, to a 9, to a 10, right? And in doing so, you'll be much more prepared to authentically have a conversation outside of the comfort zone, right? Because you know what it feels like. You are open, you're more willing, you're curious to explore when you get feedback. And that sets a very good example. That is like being a role model within your team, within your organization. Cool? Excellent. Any questions? Just drop them into the chat box, please. All right, so here we are. I am going to share with you the SHARE feedback framework. The S in SHARE stands for safety. I'm sure many of you have heard the term psychological safety at the moment. It's a new-ish term in leadership circles. And so you need the ability to create a safe space before you continue with the conversation. If by its very nature, if you're having a conversation beyond the comfort zone, it is often something that people don't know that they don't know. If it's outside of their comfort zone, they are unfamiliar. There is stuff going on that they don't know. And for many people, stepping into the unknown is somewhat scary. There can be fear around that area. So your very, very first step is you must be able to create a safe environment. H in SHARE stands for highlight the behavior. So what is it that they did or did not do? Now, typically, a lot of the times when delivering feedback, it's usually related to performance, right? Or lack of performance, and or something with the behavior. Now, behavior is what people do. It's their actions. Now, of course, if they have unacceptable behavior, chances are that will lead to unacceptable performance, but not always. Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's the other, sometimes it's both together when we're highlighting this behavior. A in SHARE is acknowledge the impact. Now, a lot of other frameworks that I've been studying around feedback is the person giving the feedback, they will share the impact that behavior has, right? So in models like the BIF model and other models like that, we highlight the behavior. So this is what was done or this is what was not done. And this is the impact it had. This behavior had this impact. Now, that's a beautiful model because it helps to carry a little bit more weight about why that's an unacceptable behavior because this is the impact. But what we want to do here with the share feedback framework is the person receiving the feedback, we want to ask them, what is the impact of that behavior? And in doing so, they will take greater responsibility and accountability. Now, of course, I'll go through each of these steps in more detail in a moment. The next very, very important step is realign expectations. So again, many leaders, we have this assumption that this person, they should know what to do. They should know their job description. They should know that they have to hit the KPI or the target. Well, there's a lot of shoulds there. There's a lot of assumptions there, and there's a lot of mind reading there. So to get beyond all of that, you simply realign with your expectations and you share them out loud. And you ensure that the other person is fully clear and understands what your expectations are of them as you move forward. And then finally, you want to empower action. So what's happening here in empowered action? This is the beginning of a coaching conversation, right? Again, many leaders fall into the trap if they've got this far, by the way, if the train hasn't already wrecked and crashed and burned, at this point here, the trap is that the leader will tell the subordinate what to do. I want you to do this, and I want you to do that, and I want you to do the other thing. Again, if you tell someone what to do, they will either reject it totally or they will resist it, right? We learned that as being a teenager. Can anyone remember being a teenager all those years ago? Who liked being told what to do? Clean your room, do the dishes, take the garbage out. Yeah, I don't think many of us liked being told what to do as a teenager. And so many of us have taken that behavior into adulthood, especially around an emotional area such as feedback. So we don't like being told what to do. So here you'll have a coaching conversation. Instead of telling them what to do, you're going to ask them. Right, let's take a look step by step. So S stands for safety. We touched on this before. Make sure you have a safe, private space. It can be in your office. It can be in the cafe up the street. It can be somewhere else where you don't have people looking at you. Not just people not hearing you. If you're in one of these glass cubicle offices where the whole world can see you, you know, our body language gives away a lot. So when you see someone, you know, through these glass cubicles and they're taking tissues and there's this, you can kind of know what's going on over there. So do your best to create that safe and private space. Now, this is also very important and something that's often overlooked. Who can tell me? Let me ask it as a question first. When you break it all down to its basics, to its fundamentals, why do we give people feedback? Tell me in the chat box nice and quickly. Tell me at the base, at the most fundamental purpose or reason, why do we give people feedback? Tell me. Tell me in the chat box, please. Okay. To improve his or her performance, to improve clarity and understanding for a better outcome. Let's be real, because we're annoyed. Yes, Pierre, but you're managing your emotional intelligence, aren't you? Oui. Okay, I like the first two there. What we're really doing, think about this. We want this person to improve. Right? Yes, it might be to improve performance. Yes, it might be to improve their behavior, but overall, we want them to improve. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Of course, it's a good thing, right? So you need to start rebranding this thing called feedback. Most people, because they don't use a framework, because they've never been taught a proper feedback model, and because of the history in the past where it did end badly because there was so much emotion, Giving feedback has this negative kind of perspective around it. So we need to rebrand it by knowing that feedback is simply helping the person to improve, and that is a good thing. So you want to make sure that your intentions are positive. And when you know that, when you remind yourself of that before going into the conversation, I promise you the results you'll achieve will be much, much better because you have a positive intention, and that's a good thing. Yeah? Excellent. All right, so let's keep going. So we're still on safety. As I just mentioned, are you open to receive feedback, right? As you get yourself up from a 5 or a 6 to an 8 or a 9 or a 10, then the conversation will be much, much better. It will be more authentic. You'll have more empathy because you're good at receiving feedback, so you'll know how to deliver it in a much more empathetic way. Now, this is probably the most important. If you forget everything I teach you today, remember this one. Ask permission first, right? Ask permission is a psychological way of creating this safe environment, and it's really, really simple. Here are some examples. Permission to speak directly. I have something on my mind. Is it okay to share openly? Would it be okay if I share some direct feedback with you? Or do you have a few moments for a straight talk? Right? Now, 99% of the time, the other person, they go, yeah, okay. Even though they know what's coming, because you ask them, they're more open and receptive to hear whatever you tell them next. Now, in those rare instances where they say, no, now is not a good time, and it could be valid, right? It could be that now is not a good time. Why? The big boss asked them to complete something by 4 o'clock, or they've got some customer meeting, or they're in the middle of some audit or other important thing going on. So if in the rare instance where they say, no, now is not a good time, you simply ask them, when would be a good time? And then you lock it in the calendar. They say, oh, tomorrow. Okay, great. What time? Morning or afternoon? Morning. Fantastic. What time? 9, 10, or 11 o'clock. Let me know. 9 o'clock. Great. Fantastic. Right. And then you put it in the calendar. You send them the invitation. And then there are no excuses. Yeah. Cool. So this is the most important step, right? And remember, during this period, are you having your emotional intelligence? Are you nice and calm? Yes or no? Of course you are, right? Because if you're all angry and frustrated, that will not create a safe environment. And the beauty of this feedback model is you can prepare for it in advance. Remember we discussed before why many of those conversations are train wrecks, because we don't prepare. We go in like a cowboy, pow, 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 and we shoot from the hip, and there's no planning. We're not really clear on the outcome. We've forgot our intention. We're actually just trying to remove anger from our body. That's not a good reason to give feedback, right? So that's the first step there, safety. Now we're on to H, which is highlight the behavior. What is it that they did or did not do? So they should have done something and they didn't do it, or they should not be doing that thing and they did it. What impact did that behavior have? You can start to consider part of the impact of their behavior, but stick to the facts. This is important here when you're looking at their behavior. Stick to the facts, stick to the data, not gossip, not hearsay, not assumptions or mind reading. Like, you will need some evidence to back you up, right? And that will prevent them trying to wiggle out of it, right? If they are doing something unacceptable, they are going to try to wiggle out of it. So you will need that evidence and data as backup, which could be not gossip, but it could be feedback or information from fellow co-workers who have observed that unacceptable behavior in multiple occasions. Now, you will want to respect the anonymity of the other people who are giving the feedback. You don't need to share that to that person. You can simply say, it has been observed by 3 or 4 other people within the team. So, for example, during the meeting, you did not contribute your insights and your perspectives were not communicated. So this could be the behavior of someone who just sits in a meeting, they're not prepared, right? They've zoned out, they're totally quiet, they're just sitting there and they're not contributing. When really you do want them to be able to contribute, but for whatever reason they are not. Most likely because they didn't make it important and they didn't prepare themselves in advance. But again, that might be an assumption. The fact is the behavior, if them not contributing, that's the problem. That's the unacceptable behavior. Or here's another example of the behavior. You missed your deadline on the team project. So typically in a team project, there are many people, there are many stakeholders. Sometimes one thing needs to be done before the other thing. So if they missed the deadline, that is the behavior. And so you need to highlight, like a flashlight, the behavior that was done or not done. Or a more simple one, your monthly quota was not met. Right? So you're highlighting the behavior here. Again, you will definitely want to prepare this in advance, right? And it's really, really easy. I just get a piece of paper and I write SHARE. And I gather my evidence, I gather my data. What was the behavior? Was it something else they did? Was it something else they did? Maybe there was a couple of unacceptable behaviors that they did or did not do. So prepare yourself in advance. Right? Pretty good so far? Pretty clear? Yes. Good. Yeah, now this is where the real shift is starting to happen. Acknowledge impact. Right? To help them, the person you're giving the feedback to help them to take greater ownership and to realize the consequences of their behavior, we need to ask them about the impact that that behavior had on you, on the team, on the business, or the customer. So similar to these models like BIF and so on, this highlighted behavior had this impact. But the first step is I want you to ask them, right? I want you to ask them, based on this behavior, what do you imagine the impact might be? So here are 2 questions you can ask. What are potential impacts from this behavior? Or Frank, what is the direct impact from these actions that you did or you did not do? Now, in the beginning, they'll probably, it depends, right? Your subordinate, the person receiving the feedback, they can react in 1,000 different ways. Your job is to remain calm, right? Especially if you know that they've done something wrong and they might be like, I don't know. And say, come on, I want you to really think about it here. Let's imagine if Mary had done this behavior or took that action, what do you think might be the impact, right? And this is going to be tough, right? This could be the toughest part of this feedback because in this point here, they're actually admitting that there were consequences to their behavior, right? So that's why you must remain calm and you might need to ask it in a few different ways. Obviously, you'll get better at this with practice. And as you prepare in advance, it'll make it go much, much smoother. Now, at this point, you can have empathy, right? It's okay to have a little bit of empathy. You've kind of put them on the spot a little bit, right? So do your best to elicit as many impacts as possible. So what's another impact from that behavior? What's another consequence of that behavior? What else do you think might happen if this behavior continues, right? And so what that does, it makes it more real and it helps to increase their awareness, right? So the more awareness that they have that this behavior has this impact, and the more that they can own that and acknowledge that, it increases their awareness, and awareness needs to happen first before transformation. Yeah, so as we really want them to transform their behavior, you have to create a lot of awareness first. Now, it might happen that your subordinate, the person receiving the feedback, they say, I don't know. I don't know the feedback. I don't understand the question. What do you mean? You're picking on me. Whatever tactic they try, you're going to remain calm. When they have finished sharing, if in fact they did share, acknowledge them, and then you can share your perspective, your observation on additional impacts, right? So let me clarify. First, you ask them, based on this behavior, those actions, what is the impact? What's the impact on me, the team, the customer? What else? Any other impact? Any other impact? Great. Thank you for sharing. Then you say, thank you for sharing, right? Because that is, in this moment, you are definitely beyond their comfort zone. You are probably a good step outside of their comfort zone. So thank them for sharing. I appreciate the honesty. May I share some observations? Now wait for the yes, right? Now this is another layer of permission. Each time you ask permission, you're taking a further step outside of the comfort zone. Now they're getting into unknown territory, right? You've highlighted something, perhaps a blind spot. It could be that they did not know that they did not know that that thing was unacceptable. So may I share some observations? And they'll go like this. Yes. One impact I observed was blah, blah, blah. Right? And at this point, so you can say this whether they have shared and acknowledged the impact or not, if they just kind of shut down and say, I don't know what you mean. What do you mean impact? I don't get it. Say, okay, well, may I share my observations? One impact I observed is, one possible impact that could happen with this is that behavior had this direct impact, right? And again, just tell the truth. If it was true that that thing that they did really messed things up, then you can be authentic. You can tell the truth, right? And you can own it, right? Including whatever emotion you might have felt. You might say, like, the impact is this is really, really frustrating for me. Like we spoke about this 3 months ago, and you promised to get back on track. And so I am feeling very, very frustrated, right? And again, don't let the emotion get control of you. You're going to maintain your serenity now. So again, here's a couple of examples. During the meeting, you didn't contribute your insights and your perspectives were not communicated. Okay, so that was the behavior, right? The highlighted behavior. The impact was a lack of clarity and confusion around an empowered way forward, right? So that's the impact of the person who was too quiet in the meeting. Or this was the highlighted behavior. You missed your deadline on the team project. The impact is this impacted the rest of the team, slowing everyone down, which will delay the readiness for the customer and means we won't get paid. And it means they'll be unsatisfied. And whatever other impact it has, share it. Don't hold it back. Now, again, this is assuming they have shared some of the impact or they did not share. These are just some examples where you could share that additional impact. Your monthly quota was not met. That was the behavior. This will impact our quarterly results, and it might mean that the entire team will miss their bonus. Yep, cool. So the R is realign expectations. Please never ever assume that they, the person you're giving the feedback, that they know the right behavior. Instead, always, always, always share your very clear and specific expectations. Don't assume that they should know their job description, right? Now, in sharing the expectations, this can be your expectations, the team expectations, the company expectations, whatever it is, depending on the situation. And in this point here, you may want to consider sharing the consequences of continued unacceptable behavior, right? So you share with them the expectations of what you want them to do, and you prepare them that if they continue doing the unacceptable behavior, that this is going to be the consequences, right? That can really help to wake them up. So my expectation is, the team expectation is, and then just say it, and then just say it straight. Again, don't assume that they should know what it is. For example, my expectation is that during strategy sessions, you come prepared and you're ready to share your valuable ideas and insights, right? You do great work and I really love how creative you are, but we don't know it unless you share it, right? So please, I want you to come prepared and I want you to be ready to share. And according to company policy, if this behavior continues, I will have no choice but to follow the disciplinary action of the company. Now, let me give you a bonus tip here. If you need to go this route, right, and sometimes it happens, you get some prop, get like a piece of paper or a notebook or whatever, and you say, you move it away from you, and sorry, it's a bit fuzzy because of my background, but you point to it over here. So as per company policy, here's the company policy, not here. You want to associate this bad news with something over here written down, right? Not directly in, because now they're going to associate that bad news directly with your face. So it's the technique is called how not to get shot, right? So when you're delivering a official disciplinary warning, or you're mentioning them that if it happens again, I'll need to fill out this warning because it's company policy, right? That's okay, right? You're actually just being very, very transparent. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not a threat. You're just being very, very transparent, very, very clear that if it happens again, I don't have a choice but to do this thing, which I don't want to do. Ensure that they fully understand, right? Is that clear on the expectations? Any questions on the expectations? Make sure you get an acknowledgement. That's what it means to realign expectations. If it's just a one-way conversation, they might not buy into it. So make sure they acknowledge it. Ask for clarity. And then the final step is going to be empowered actions. This is the beginning of a future-focused coaching conversation, right? So you've addressed the past. You've addressed the behavior. You've addressed that thing that they did or did not do. So now you want to focus on the future. That the hard work is done. If you've got to this point successfully, this is kind of where the magic happens. Don't tell them the actions that they should take. You definitely want to ask them, which is the very nature of coaching. We don't tell people what to do. We ask them. Questions like, what specific actions can you take to ensure these expectations, remind them, tell them again, right? Repetition, repetition, repetition. They'll be more likely to remember it, are fulfilled, right? So then you ask them. And when you ask them, what specific actions will you take? What do? You zip it. Now, it might be some awkward silence. They might look off like this. They might look around like this. That's okay. That's when they're actually doing the thinking. This is when the real work is happening. So you need to be comfortable in those moments of silence. Resist the urge to jump in to tell them what to do. Let them do their own push-ups, right? They're literally thinking new thoughts in that moment when they're looking off and even having a little cry or whatever. Let them, right? Let them. Wait for their answers, let them think, let them take the ownership and responsibility, let them decide. Now, it might happen that their actions are a little bit soft or they're somehow unrealistic. You cannot let that slide. You need to challenge them, right? Frank, permission to share an observation? I'm not sure if that action will guarantee that you'll fulfill this expectation. Come on. Dig a little bit deeper. We're on the same team here, Frank. I'm here to help you. Tell me, What can you do? What is within your control to make this happen? Remind them of the consequences if necessary. Thank them for the commitment, and you can ask them any concerns with taking these actions. Now, again, this is a very important question to ask. You don't just want to assume that everything will be sunshine and rainbows, right? No, if there is some kind of concern or fear or worry that they have, you want to flush that out inside of that conversation, right? Not later, and you find out a week later they haven't done that thing because they had concerns about Mary in accounting who's being difficult, for example, right? And then very importantly, what support do you need? Cool. So that's a coaching conversation. It could take as little as 5 minutes. It might go to 10 to 15 minutes. That's okay. It's a worthwhile investment, I promise you, because they're taking greater ownership and responsibility to change their behavior. So this is what I do. I just get a piece of paper. I write share down there, and then I just map it out. Hey, Frank, do you have a few minutes for a straight talk? During yesterday's meeting, you didn't contribute your insights and your perspectives were not communicated. You're highlighting the behavior. What kind of impact do you think that had, Frank? What else? Anything else? Great. Thank you for sharing, Frank. One impact from my perspective is that ultimately we'll lose clients. If you're not sharing your valuable insight and the knowledge and experience that you have, we won't improve the product, we won't improve the service, and we might actually lose customers. Is that something that you can see, Frank? Yeah? Great. Okay. Thank you, Frank. Now, moving forward, Frank, my expectation is that you are fully prepared and you're ready to share your insights and ideas in the next meeting. We need your input. We want your input. That's why we brought you on as part of the team. Now, again, Frank, I don't want to do this, but if it happens again, remember the company policy? I won't have a choice but to go through the warning process. And that's the last thing that I want to do because we're on the same team. So tell me, Frank, as we're on the same team, I want us all to succeed. I want you to succeed, the team to succeed, all of us to succeed. So tell me, what specific actions will you take to ensure your full participation next time? What else could you do? What else could you do? Any resources that you need? Any concerns that you have? How can I support? Awesome. Thank you very much, Frank. Shall we touch base again in about 2 weeks? Yep, just after the next meeting. Fantastic. Let's lock it into the calendar. Boom. Right, so as you can see, it's actually not that complicated. And when you break it down and you prepare yourself in advance, and it only needs to be bullet points, right? And you can review this video, then go for it. And I promise you, once you practice it once or twice, then you will be able to do it organically. You will be able to have that conversation very quickly, and you'll be able to get straight to the point. Cool? Awesome. How are we going for time, TikTok? 1 minute. Okay, so techniques to handle defensiveness. Let's go through this very, very quickly. So when people do get defensive, our own emotion can be anger, withdrawal, sarcasm, or denial. So that can happen for either people, the person giving the feedback or the person receiving the feedback. So to manage that tension when everyone is outside of their comfort zone, having these uncomfortable conversations, take a breath. Take a breath. Take a moment before responding. No one ever said you have to respond in a nanosecond. So take a breath. It prevents reactive escalation. Acknowledge the emotions. So if the other person is getting very emotional, have some empathy. Look, I can appreciate this is frustrating, and this will validate their feelings without agreeing with the behavior. Keep it logical. Stick to facts and observations. Keep the focus on the things that is within their control. This is important. Some defensive mechanism is that the person receiving the feedback will start to blame other people. You want to diffuse that. You want to say, okay, look, thank you for sharing. I can address that with them directly. Frank, I want you to stay with the focus on the things that are within your control. So you always keep bringing it back to what is within their control, right? You can hear what they have to say. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. So you can take a note and you can decide to follow up on that later, but always bring them back to what we call being at cause, to being in charge of the things that they can control, which is their behavior, right? Even if someone did something wrong to them, it doesn't give them an excuse to be angry and, aggressive. Ask open-ended questions. Can you help me understand your perspective, right? So tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me something that I don't know, Frank. What am I missing here, Frank? Yeah, and then listen to understand. Don't wait for them to talk just so you can say what you want to say. Really listen to understand, because it could be that there is something that you don't know that you don't know. So repeat back what they said, practice your active listening. What I'm hearing is blah, 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 blah. Is that correct, Frank? Right? And in doing so, it builds more rapport, it creates more safety, it enables the conversation to go deeper or further outside of the comfort zone. Cool. So there we go. Any questions, drop them into the chat box, and I'll just wrap it up really, very quickly. NLP. For those of you who have not studied NLP yet, this is one of the best ways to have these conversations beyond the comfort zone. Within NLP, it's a 5-day program. It's coming up in November, 15th to 19th of November, right here in Bangkok. You will learn massive amounts of self-awareness. With your self-awareness comes your transformation. You'll be able to better manage your mental health because you'll be letting go of these trapped negative emotions and these limiting beliefs inside the body. You're going to learn at least 20 different tools and techniques to be a master communicator, all of which will make these conversations beyond the comfort zone much, much easier. Tools for emotional intelligence so that you can respond instead of react. Awesome tools for personal and professional growth and to improve those relationships. So the regular investment, 69,000 baht. Your special webinar investment, only 50,000 baht. We also have a monthly payment plan. The other program I want to talk about today is the facilitator training program. It's the evolution of the Train the Trainer. It's 9 to 10 of October, and you will discover the facilitator's code, right? This is happening next week. So this is literally your last chance to reserve a seat. We have 17 people confirmed, so there are a few more seats available. So the facilitator's code is you need to learn how to create your content. How can you take this idea and put it in such a way to be able to share it with your audience, whoever that is? And knowing who your audience is an important part of the creation process. You need to own it. You need to be confident with the information. You need to be able to deliver that information. We're going to share with you tools and techniques, whether you're doing online sessions like this one, face-to-face, hybrid, or whatever. And very importantly, how to increase the engagement. How do you ask questions? How do you answer questions, and so on? The regular investment, almost 30,000 baht. But for my webinar friends, it's only 17,500 baht. It's next week, Thursday and Friday next week. So book your seats as soon as possible. And for those who I'm not yet connected with on LinkedIn, please do so. You can take a quick screenshot there or a quick photo, and then you can add me in later. And then as I come out of here, I'm going to quickly check to see if there are any questions. Take negative feedback. Yep, coaching questions are actually scolding sessions. Yeah, they can be, Alvin, especially if people have not learned the correct way to coach. And of course, you know where to come if you need to learn about coaching questions, right? I think it's in the name there, Coachology. Yeah, that's a clue. So you can come and see. Glad you guys enjoyed. Thank you very much for your positive comments there. Yep, NLP is wonderful. And here's a question. What are my tips to deliver feedback to someone who are much more senior? Perfect. Thank you, Veena. Here's the thing. The process you just learned, you will follow that exactly with one small change. You ask permission twice. So it might sound like this. Gok, 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 gok. Boss, do you have a few minutes? And the boss goes, yep, come in. And you sit down and you say, listen, boss, look, I've got something on my mind. I want to have a very open adult conversation with you today. Are you sure it's okay that I can speak freely? In that moment, that's the second time you've asked permission, they're going to do this. They're going to close their laptop. They're going to look up to you and they say, wow, yeah, please. It sounds important, right? So now you have their attention and you can pretty much say anything you want because you asked permission first, right? Boss, I want to be able to share openly. I feel a little bit like, oh, are you sure it's okay that I share this with you? So simply ask permission twice. I do it with my wife all the time. Just kidding. She's sitting over there growling at me now. Cool. So I hope that helps, Veena. But now here's the other thing I want to say. With this practice, don't practice it with your boss first, right? I want you to build the muscle first. Practice it with a colleague, practice it with a co-worker. And if you know that you need to have a sensitive conversation with someone, find a buddy first and do it as a role play together, right? In other words, do a test run of the conversation before you actually have that conversation with someone, right? I've done that hundreds of times for myself. When I know that I've needed to have a sensitive conversation with someone, I do a practice run first with a trusted colleague or my business partner or whoever. That will mentally prepare you to actually have the conversation in a much, much smoother way. So thank you very much, everyone. Nice to see some familiar faces here. Nice to see some new faces there. To my friends in Bangladesh, I will await your invitation to come and join you in Dhaka for some leadership training action in 2026. Until next time, guys, please stay cool, stay awesome, and see you at the next webinar. Thanks, everyone. Ciao, ciao.